Shalom, this is Yah is Magnified, and I'm back with another informative video. Today's video is titled In Propria Persona. But before I tackle this subject, as always, I must state for the record, I'm not a lawyer, I do not practice law, and I do not pretend to. All my videos are for informational and educational purposes only. They're all facts and all truth. Nothing more, nothing less. So with that being said, guys, I need y'all to hit that like button. And also, if you're new to my channel, hit that subscribe button. And also, hit that notification bell so you all can be notified as I'm dropping these powerful videos. So without further ado, guys, let's get to it. Okay, so I know it's been a minute since I dropped the educational video, but that's because I've been extremely busy, guys. So the first video I want to drop, pertaining to, when you guys going to the court, is when you guys are entering into the court, claiming to be in propria persona. Okay? In all my videos, you never hear me speak of in propria persona, and that's for a reason, okay? But a lot of men go to court claiming to be a living man, but still go into court as in propria persona, okay? The two just simply doesn't mix, guys. You cannot be a man and still claim to be in propria persona. That does not work, okay? But the main reason why a lot of men go into court claiming to be in propria persona, one is because they heard someone teaching that, and two, it's because they read the definition but lack proper understanding of what they actually reading when it comes down to this definition that's on the screen. So now let's read this definition so we all get proper understanding of what in propria persona truly means, okay? So now, let's dig in deep. So now, it states what? Highlighted area. In propria persona. It reads, in one's own proper person. So again, we're going to go over that term, proper person. Okay, we're going to break that down in there's two words, proper and person. We're going to break that down as well. But let's continue. It was formerly a rule in pleading that pleas to the jurisdiction of the court must be pled in propria personam. So that's the reason why a lot of men go to court claiming to be in propria persona, but saying that they are not that name. Okay, so they're trying to say that they're not the legal person, aka the straw man, the ends legals, or whatever other title you want to call the trust that was created at your birth. Okay, but they want to say that they're not that, but they want to still appear in court as propria persona, claiming to be a living man. Okay, but let's continue reading. Oh yeah, but also it states a plea. So let's find out what a plea is before we can proceed forward, because a plea is just simply an answer to the court. But let's continue on. Let's go to the definition for the term plea, just to further prove that. Okay, guys, let's pick this up at the yellow highlighted area at the top where it states plea, and it reads common law practice. Then it reads a pleading, anyone in a series of pleadings, more particularly the first pleading on the part of the defendant in the strictest sense. So now, as you all can see, that is now highlighted in red. The reason why I highlighted it in red, guys, because this is the answer, of what a plea really is. And a plea is simply what, guys? The answer which the defendant in an action at law makes to the plaintiff declaration. That's all a plea is, guys. A plea is just simply an answer to the complaint or to the plaintiff declaration. That's it. That's all. Okay? So now let's go back to the definition for in propria persona so we can get a better understanding of what it means. Let's continue on. Okay, so now, as you all can see, we're back at the definition for in propria persona. Now, again, let's pick it up from the top. And it reads, in one's own proper person. It was formerly a rule in pleading that pleas to the jurisdiction of the court must be pled in what? In propria personam. So again, guys, they take that, they say, okay, so this is how we challenge the jurisdiction of the court. We must go in as propria personam. But let's continue on. And the reason they come to that conclusion is because what is stated next. It states, because if pleaded by attorney, they omit the jurisdiction, as an attorney is an officer of the court, and he is presumed to plead after having obtained leave, which omits the jurisdiction. So they say, well, because we have an attorney, the attorney will automatically make the plea on your behalf because he admits to the jurisdiction of the court. If you're going in without an attorney, then you must go in as propria persona to challenge jurisdiction, right? Right, that's according to their plans, right? Or that's their logical thinking of why they're going as in propria persona, right? But now let's put this up at the very top where it states in one's own proper person. So now let's go over the definition of what proper means, and then we're going to go over the term person. Let's go there. Okay, guys, let's pick this up at the yellow highlighted area where it states proper, and it reads that which is fit, suitable, appropriate, adapted, correct. See, so the reason why I highlighted correct in red, because that's the term I want to use to, or that's the word I want to use to replace proper with when we go back and read the definition again for impropria personam, okay? Let's put everything in its proper context, okay? So we're going to use the term correct. So whenever we see proper, we're just going to change it to correct, okay? You can also use fit, suitable, appropriate, adapted, but you know, I just like correct a little bit better than the others mentioned prior before correct, okay? So now let's go to the term person, because we know proper simply means correct. So now let's go back to the term person now. Let's get an understanding of what a person is. Let's go there. All right, so now let's pick this up at the top where it states, highlighted in yellow, person, upper left-hand corner. And it reads, in general usage, a human being, i.e. natural person. Though by statute, okay, so the reason why I have the term statute highlighted in red is because what? We know when we go into these courts, we're dealing with what? Statutes and codes. But let's continue. It states, term may include labor organizations, partnerships, associations, corporations, legal representatives, trustees in bankruptcies, or receivers, with the statutes and codes right there to support it. But let's continue. Then it states, scope and delineations of terms is necessary for determining those to whom 14th Amendment of Constitution affords protection, since this amendment expressly applies to what? Persons. So we know the 14th Amendment was created strictly for persons, okay? So we know what a person is, guys. A person is simply a what? It's a corporation, a legal fiction, a trust. That's how it has what? Trustees. So and to further prove that, if you as a person was to file for bankruptcy, you will have to go what? And with a trustee, which also becomes the what? The attorney acting on your behalf and when you're filing your bankruptcy case. And it's just that simple, guys, because we're dealing with what? We're all dealing in trust, okay? And child support is what? Child support is simply a what? A suit against antitrust offenses. That's another topic of conversation, guys. I'll go over that another time. Okay? But now, let's go to the 14th Amendment, since persons apply to the 14th Amendment. Let's go there real quick. Let's continue to break this thing down a little bit deeper. Now, as you all can see, we're coming from Cornell Law School. Let's pick this up where it states Amendment 14. And it reads, Section 1. All persons. Notice I highlighted that in red because it states all persons, right? We know what a person is. A person is a trust, an ens legis, or corporation, aka the straw man. Okay, so all corporations, should I say, right? That's what I said. All corporations born or nationalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So if you claiming to be that person, or you're claiming to appear in propria persona, meaning you're claiming to be the correct corporation that the court has called on, or the correct legal entity that the court has called on, then you're standing as a United States citizen, which what? Is subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So how can you challenge jurisdiction standing in its propria personam, claiming not to be the name, when the proper person is what? The correct corporation standing before the court that you claiming to be as propria persona. But let's continue reading. Then it states, are citizens of the United States and of the states wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any laws which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Okay? So again, the 14th Amendment only applies to what, guys? Applies to persons. That's it. That's all. It doesn't apply to a man or a woman if they're standing in their proper status. Okay? 14th Amendment only applies to persons, which are what? Legal fictions, legal entities, trusts, corporations, aka the straw man. Okay? So now let's go back and read in propria personam jurisdiction, since we know that to be a proper person, that means to be what? To be the correct corporation standing before the court. That's it. That's all, guys. So how can you claim not to be a corporation but still go in there as a corporation in propria persona? It doesn't make any sense. But let's continue on. Now let's go back to the definition of propria persona just to read it one more time. Let's go back there. So now let's pick this up at the upper left-hand corner, highlighted in yellow, where it states in propria persona. And it reads, in one's own proper person. So again, we know what proper person is now. Proper person, this means what? Correct legal entity. That's it. That's all, guys. The legal entity is what? The trust created at your birth, known as what? The transmit utility, the ens legis, the straw man, the legal person, whatever you want to title it. You know, it's just that legal entity that was created at your birth. Okay? They're not talking about you as a living, breathing man. And it's just that simple. I've been telling y'all this for 6 years now. And if you go back and watch my old videos, 5 or 6 years now. But I've been saying the same thing over and over and over again. I haven't switched my pitch. Why? Because the truth is the truth. The truth will never change. Let's continue though. And it reads, it was formerly a rule in pleading that pleas to the jurisdiction of the court must be pled in personam jurisdiction. So again, guys, this is why they go to court claiming to be in personam to challenge the jurisdiction of the court. But let's continue. It states because it's pled by the attorney, they admit the jurisdiction, as an attorney is an officer of the court, and he is presumed to plead after having obtained leave, which admits the jurisdiction. So again, guys, so now let's go to in person, since when you go to make your plea or you go to challenge in personam jurisdiction, you go in person to plead that challenge. But let's go to in person, since we know that improper person is simply in the correct legal entity. So now let's go to in person and read the definition of that. Let's go there. Okay, so now let's pick this up at the top where it states in person, upper left hand corner highlighted in yellow. It states a party, plaintiff or defendant, who sues out of a complaint, writ, or other process, or appears to conduct his case in court himself instead of through a solicitor or counsel, is said to act and appear in what? In person, guys. So without an attorney, you are appearing in person, which is what? The correct person, also known as what? The correct legal entity, the one that's what? Subject to the court's jurisdiction, because they're subject to the United States and the state that person is alleged citizenship of. That's why I also never say that I'm a state citizen. Why? Because a state citizen, a United States citizen, they all still pledge allegiance to what? The corporate United States, which turns you over to what? The legal entity known as the straw man. Okay, which is what? The correct party, known as what? Propria persona. That's it. That's all, guys. But let's continue. To further prove that, let's read in persona. And it reads, against the person, action seeking judgments against a person involving his personal rights and based on jurisdiction of his person. Of what? Of his person. Okay? So a man and a person are two different things. That's why it says of his person. Of who person? Of the man who's claiming to be that legal entity, who's appearing in court as what? Propria persona. He's now appearing as what? His person, which is what? Subject to the court and the what? The United States. Why? Because he's appearing as what? Propria persona. It's just that simple, guys. But let's continue. As distinguished from a judgment against property, i.e. in rem. Then it states type of jurisdictional powers which a court may acquire over the defendant himself in contrast to the jurisdiction of his property. See also in personam jurisdiction, in rem jurisdiction, in personam. So now, let's read in personam jurisdiction. Let's understand what is in personam jurisdiction. And it reads, highlighted in yellow, guys, power which a court has over the defendant himself in contrast to the court's powers over the defendant's interest in property. Quasi in rem, or power over the property itself. Highlighted in red, guys, again for what? Because this is your answer. A court which lacks personal jurisdiction is without power to issue an in personam judgment. So if you claim that they lack personal jurisdiction, then how can you go in as in personam, claim that they lack in personam judgment if you're going into court claiming to what? To be in persona to do what? To challenge personam jurisdiction. So how can the court lack in personam jurisdiction if you're going into court in persona, which is the correct person, which gives them what? Jurisdiction. It's just that simple, guys. That's why I never tell you I have to go to court as what? In persona, because the moment you do that, you waive your jurisdictional challenges, actually, because you now are meant to be what? The correct person that's what? Appear before the court that was what? That was summons. It's just that simple, guys. Okay? But let's continue on. Let's continue to break down what a persona is, since we know that is what? In persona. So it's two words. It's called in propria persona. So let's find out what persona means, because we know propria is another word for proper, so it means proper persona. So now let's go and find out what persona means, so you all can understand what a persona is. Okay, let's go there. Let's finish breaking this thing down, guys. Let's let's pick this up upper left hand corner again, highlighted in yellow. I just want to go over another definition for in personam, so we can further break this thing down, because we know that in personam also derives from the word in persona. So we're going to also go over in persona after we go over in personam. But let's continue on. It states in personam, in rem, in the Roman law from which they are taken, the expression in rem and in personam were always opposed to one another. An act or proceeding in personam being one done or directed against or with reference to a specific person, while an act or proceeding in rem as one done or directed with reference to no specific person, and consequently against or with reference to all whom it might concern, or all the world. The phrase were especially applied to actions, right? An action in personam being the remedy where a claim against a specific person arose out of an obligation. So as if you guys notice, I highlighted again, a specific person out of the roles of an obligation. We know that child support is what? A suit for what? An obligation or an alleged obligation. And that alleged obligation stands from what? A legal duty. Also known as what? The legal duty to support. The same thing I've been telling you guys from the very beginning. Nothing has changed. Okay? So when you're suing someone in personam, you're suing them in their person. Okay? That's all it is. Okay? So now that we got to the bottom of that, let's go back again to the definition for what? In propria persona, because again, personam comes from the word persona. So again, let's read that definition again for in propria persona, so we can get a better breakdown each time we read the definition of what is actually being stated. Let's go back there. Right, so now let's pick this up again. Upper left hand corner, highlighted in yellow, where it states in propria persona. Again, we know what in propria persona means. It's simply what? It's just in what? In the correct legal entity. That's it. Okay, or you're coming before the court in the correct status of the legal entity that you're claiming that, as a man that you're not. But if you're going into court as propria persona, then you also claiming that you are. So that's why the court continues to proceed forward against you, guys, because there's no way that you can say that you're not the name, but then comes to court in propria persona, which is what? The correct legal entity, the same legal entity that what? That they summons to appear for court. It's just that simple, guys. Okay, so now let's go over the definition of persona, because again, it states in propria persona. We know that propria means correct, because propria derives its meaning from proper. Okay, so because it derives its meaning from proper, then in propria means in the correct what? Personam. So now let's go persona, because we know personam also stands for the word person. But let's go to the term persona so we can find out what a persona really is. Let's go there. Let's get deeper and deeper and deeper. All right, let's go. Pick this up at the very top, highlighted area where it states in persona, that's highlighted in yellow, okay? But before I go over the definition, the funny part about it is, guys, when I be strolling through YouTube looking at videos of men, going into court, claiming to be sovereign citizens, or men that's going to, teaching you guys how to stand in court, and they tell you guys to go to court and say things like this: I'm here in a special appearance in propria persona, the Chinese jurisdiction. I am a man and I'm not that legal entity. So now, make it make sense, guys. How can you go to court claiming to be in propria persona, but then turn back around and say that you're not that name? It doesn't make sense, guys. You can't do both. You can't appear in propria persona, which means what? Appearing as the correct entity, to now saying that you're not that entity at all. That's why the judge simply cracks up laughing and makes people look like a fool in court, because they have no understanding of what they're saying, and they can't comprehend what's being stated before them. They just read a definition, or they hear other people telling you to go in there and do these things, and they get the same results of the same people that told you to go in there and do these things. Why? Because they don't have an understanding or a clue of what they're saying when they tell you guys to go in there and do these things. Because if they did, they'll be like me and tell you guys don't go in there and state these statements, because the moment you do, you're setting yourself up for failure. But let's continue on. It states what? In the civil law, we know that child support is what? A civil suit. But let's continue. Character. We know what a character is, right? A character is something that a man uses, such as, let's say you was, us coming up, especially if you was born like the 80s and stuff like that, you play all types of video games. You had Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Streets of Rage, all types of video games, but you had to also select this thing to play the game. You had to select this thing called the character. You have multiple characters you can choose from. Whatever character you decide to choose, that's the character that you use to what? Play the game. Same thing. A man selects a character, or a man has a character. That character is the legal entity known as what? the straw man, which is the legal name, the trust, the ens legis, the transmit utility, or whatever title he wants to give it. It's just simply a legal entity that the man uses to do what? To participate in commerce. But let's continue. It states what? In virtue of which certain rights belong to a what? A man. I highlighted the term man in red. Why? Because the man has to what? To choose to act as the character. But let's continue. And certain duties are imposed upon him. Now, what are those duties imposed upon him? Once he selects to do what? To act as what? That character. But let's further prove that. We're going to prove it because we're going to go deep into the term persona. But let's continue. It states what? Thus, one man may unite many characters, as for example, the characters of what? Father and son. Child support comes after what? Absent fathers, which is also considered to be a what? A persona, a character. So you're going to the court as a father, you're going into the court as a persona, a character. You're playing a role. It's just that simple, guys. Let's continue reading. Or of what? Master and servant. Okay? So when you're going to the court as father, then you're going in to the master, which is the court. You're going in as servant under servitude once you're in propria persona. That's what? Subject to the corporate United States and the corporate state that turns you over to United States jurisdiction. And it's just that simple, guys. But to further prove that, let's go over more definitions of the term persona. Let's dig deep. All right, let's pick this up at the very top, guys, where it states what? Meaning of persona. Then it further reads on the meaning of persona in Roman law. Okay, because we know that the term persona is in fact from Roman law. So let's pick it up at 27 because 27 states something very important. It reads, it will be very useful to understand the meaning of persona in Roman law. Hint, it will be very useful to understand the meaning of Roman law, persona in Roman law. Why did it say that? Because a lot of people who going in there claiming to be in propria persona don't know what it truly means in Roman law. They just read the definition and claim to know, and they go into court and make a fool out of themselves. But let's continue. It states what? The word persona means any single person or any society of persons who can enjoy and exercise rights and who are what, guys? Subject to perform duties. Okay, so by you going to the court saying that you are in propria persona, you are subject to perform duties. What are duties, guys? Duties are obligations. What is child support? Child support is an obligation and or what? A legal duty to support. To further prove that, let's go to the definition for what? Obligation first, and then we're going to go to the definition for child support. Let's go to the definition of obligation. Let's go there. Okay, so now let's pick this up at the very top where it states obligation. It reads, a generic word derived from the Latin substantive obligatio, having many wide and varied meanings according to the context in which it is used, right? But then it states, let's continue to the next highlighted yellow area, that it states that which a person is bound to do or forbear. Now, let's read it in red. It's simply a what? A duty imposed by law, promise, contract, relation of society, courtesy, kindness, etc. So again, an obligation is also a duty imposed by law, promise, contract, relations of society, such as what? The civil society, that they're claiming you belong to. That's why they're having you in a civil suit. Okay? So again, an obligation is no more than a legal duty. Okay? But let's continue on. Now let's go back again to what we was reading about persona. Let's go back there. All right, we're right back. So now let's read it again at 27. It states, it will be very well useful to understand the meaning of persona in Roman law. The word persona means any single person or any society of persons who can enjoy and exercise rights and who are subject to perform duties. Okay, so now if you're going to court, right, and you're claiming to be in propria persona, but you're not that name, right? But by your claiming to be in propria persona, you are now subject to perform duties. And what is child support, guys? Let's go to the definition for child support. All right, let's pick this up. Highlighted in yellow where it states child support. Then it states what? The legal obligation. Again, highlighted in red is obligation. Why? Because we know obligation is a legal duty. The legal duty is placed on what? Persona. So now if you're going into court in propria persona, then you are now subject to the obligations placed on you by the state. But let's continue. It states the legal obligation of parents to contribute to the economic maintenance, including education, of their children, enforceable in what? Both civil and criminal contexts. So again, guys, as you all can see, that's why they're proceeding forward and doing the things you're doing once you enter into these courts as what? In propria persona, because you simply saying that you are the correct entity that is what? Subject to the jurisdiction that the agency can now enforce its obligations on you, to have you now being subject to them as in propria persona to do what? To do what? To be held accountable to child support, and they can enforce it by what? Both civil and criminal lawsuits against you. And it's just that simple, guys. But now let's go back to the term persona so we can get a better understanding again, because we're going to dig deep. I know a lot of people will be mad after this video, but the truth is the truth, guys. The truth will set you free. Let's continue. Okay, guys, so this is the last reference point I'm going to go over, okay? Because I got to get back to work, guys. I'm very busy. But it states what? Number 2, defining a legal persona. And it reads what, guys? The term person comes from the Latin persona, meaning what, guys? Mask. That's it. That's all. Persona simply means mask. And because persona simply means mask, when you go to court in propria persona, you're going into court as what? Wearing the mask entitled what? A legal entity, or what? One that's subject to what? Perform duties and obligations. That's it. That's all. But let's continue on. It states what? A legal person is defined as what? An entity that exists as a matter of law. What type of entity, guys? A legal entity. That's it. That's all, because you're dealing with what? The legal society, known as what? The civil society. But let's continue. Or as viewed from the standpoint of law, similar to a masked person on stage, or an actor viewed as such from the audience perspective. Slaves of the past were not what, guys? Legal persons. So slaves of the past were not legal persons, so they was not what? Subject to. And it's just that simple. Let's continue. Or states what? Or subjects of law. So if they're not subjects of law, then there was under no obligation to perform. Okay? That's all it was. But let's continue. It states what? But rather objects of their masters. That's it. That's all, guys. Okay? So again, I just wanted to show you all that. But hold on. Let me go back to that last definition as well I read to further, state the same thing that this definition is stating. So again, we know that propria and to be in propria persona simply means to be in mask, or basically standing as what? A legal entity. That's it. That's all. So you can't go to court claiming to be in mask, but say, I'm not the mask that I'm in. It doesn't make sense, guys. Okay? So now, again, I just want to go back to this last definition I just read, because I want to read one more thing to you guys, and I'll let you all go. Let's go there real quick. Okay, guys, so I just want to go over this last point when pertaining to persona, because I feel as though this one line right here summarize it all, and it states what? Thus, a persona may be defined as a century of rights and duties. That's all a persona is, right? Okay, cool. But let's continue to the next sentence. It says what? Many separate individuals may make up one judicial persona, and one individual may combine several personas, or what? Legal characters, guys. Okay? So again, you cannot go to court, to summarize this again, guys, before I let you all go. You cannot go to court claiming to be in propria persona, but then turn around and say, I'm not that person. Okay? It's absolutely impossible. Anyone have you go to court and to say that, I will run immediately, because they will put you in a situation that you cannot get out of. Okay? So again, you cannot go to court claiming to be in persona, right, to challenge jurisdiction because you are not that person, to then turn around and say that the court doesn't have jurisdiction over you when you appeared in court in persona, which simply means what? The correct entity that the court called upon. That's it. That's all, guys. So again, that's all I'm gonna do for today. If you all need my help, hit me up at my email at yahuismagnified@gmail.com. Let's get this right wisdom, this right knowledge, and this right understanding. With that being said, guys, you all be blessed out there. Enjoy y'all week. Continue to study. Don't quit. Don't give up. And with that being said, I say shalom.